"Oh man, can you drive a bit faster? This traffic is insane." "Sir, how can I drive faster in this traffic? Look at this mess. The car isn't going to fly." "I know it can't fly, but at least try to move quickly." "Ugh, this Mumbai traffic. I'll miss my train. I need to reach Nashik by tomorrow morning, no matter what." "Why are you shouting unnecessarily, sir? If it was so important, you should have left the office on time. But no, your office is always your priority." "Rosie, don't lecture me. My mind is already messed up. Just check the train status online." Seeing Joseph's anger, Rosie quietly checked her mobile for the train status. She realized the train had already left Bandra station. "Joseph, the train's gone." "What?" "Check again. See if there's another train to Nashik." Rosie looked at her phone and sighed. There's no other train tonight. Hearing this, Joseph lost his temper and started yelling at Rosie, even though it wasn't her fault. The driver, who had been silently listening to their conversation, spoke up while glancing at them through the rearview mirror. "Excuse me, sir. May I suggest something?" "Now you two want to talk? Fine, say whatever you want." The driver, nervously looking at Joseph's angry face, said, "Sir, your booking is until Bandra station, but if you pay me extra, I can turn off the GPS tracker and drive you to Nashik. It's 1 a.m. now. We'll reach by 5 or 5:30 a.m. "Are you mad? Driving all night? It'll be exhausting and risky too. You've already been driving the whole day. You must be tired." "True, but his idea makes sense, and we don't have any other option. I'll sit in the front and keep you company with music. If you get tired, I can drive for a bit." "Joseph, he's asking to turn off the GPS tracker. What if something goes wrong? Nobody will know we're traveling with him. You've heard of so many cases these days." "Oh, stop watching those crime shows, Rosie. He looks decent, and he's genuinely trying to help us." Rosie wasn't comfortable traveling at night in the car, but Joseph's insistence left her no choice. They set off for Nashik. Joseph and the driver chatted while Rosie, sitting alone in the back seat, fell asleep from exhaustion. The driver noticed her sleeping and smirked mysteriously, glancing at her repeatedly. Joseph, oblivious to everything, enjoyed the music playing in the car. "Ye Sham Mastani, Madhosh Ki Ye Jaye." After some time, the car stopped on the highway. Rosie woke up abruptly, startled. She looked around for Joseph and the driver, but the car was empty. The road outside was desolate, surrounded by dense forest. Panicking, she looked out of the car windows, but couldn't see anyone. As she stepped out of the car, she suddenly felt a hand on her shoulder. She screamed loudly. She screamed as a terrifying woman stood before her. Before Rosie could react, the woman disappeared, merging into her body. Hearing her scream, Joseph rushed to her side. "What happened, Rosie? Where's the woman?" "Joseph, where were you? Where did that woman go?" "What woman?" "There's no one here," Joseph replied, confused. "We were at that tea stall over there, having tea. You were asleep, so we didn't want to wake you." As he pointed towards the tea stall, Rosie was shocked. Just moments ago, there had been nothing there. No stall, no shops, just an empty road. How is this possible? There was nothing here before. How can there suddenly be a tea stall and a refreshment shop? "Maybe you saw a dream," Joseph said, trying to reassure her. "Have some tea. It'll make you feel better." Still scared, Rosie shook her head in refusal. The driver returned to the car, sat in the driver's seat, and smiled at her. Rosie didn't like the way he smiled. The driver extended a packet of betel nuts towards her. "Here, have some. It'll help you stay awake," he said. Reluctantly, and at Joseph's insistence, Rosie put one in her mouth. As soon as she did, she smelled a strong perfume and felt as though someone had sat beside her. But when she turned to look, there was no one there. The entire night, Rosie sat quietly, frightened. Finally, by morning, they reached Nashik. "See, I brought you both here safely," the driver said, his voice laced with an unusual confidence. "You were unnecessarily worried about traveling with me, but I assure you, this journey is one you'll remember for the rest of your life," he added, his eyes gleaming unnaturally. Rosie felt uneasy. As she leaned into the car to grab her handbag, she felt as though someone had pushed her out of the car. Startled, she looked at Joseph, but he seemed unaware of what had happened. They reached their hotel room. "The client meeting is at 9 a.m., and it's only 5 a.m. now. I'll take a nap to feel fresh. You should rest too," Joseph said, inviting Rosie to sleep. But Rosie, feeling unsettled, went to the balcony instead. The pink hues of the rising sun, the cool breeze, and the chirping of birds somewhat calmed her restless mind. Lost in thought, she didn't realize 2 hours had passed. When she looked at the clock, she exclaimed, "Oh my God, I've been sitting here for 2 hours." Determined to get ready before Joseph woke up, she went to the washroom to freshen up. While washing her face, she noticed scratch marks on her neck. Shocked, she muttered, "Where did these marks come from? And why are they bleeding slightly? These are fresh marks. But how? They weren't there last night." Still trying to make sense of it, she heard Joseph's voice outside. "Rosie, what are you doing in there for the past hour? I need to get ready too. The client must be waiting." Rosie was stunned. "An hour? I just came in," she thought. Hastily, she splashed water on her face, skipped her shower, and stepped out of the washroom. Standing in front of the dressing table, she began brushing her hair. A few minutes later, Joseph stood behind her, already dressed. "Rosie, are you feeling okay? For the past half an hour, you've just been standing here with the hairbrush. What's wrong?" Startled, Rosie realized she wasn't ready yet, not even changed her clothes. She couldn't understand how so much time had passed while she just stood there. Joseph looked concerned. "You don't seem well. Maybe the travel has taken a toll on you. I told you to rest when we arrived, but you insisted on sitting in the balcony. Now, just lie down and relax. I'll meet the client and be back soon." With that, Joseph left the room. Rosie was now alone in the spacious hotel room. Sitting at the dressing table, she noticed dark circles under her eyes. As she stood up, she saw a hand emerge from the mirror and wrap around her neck, choking her. Terrified, she spun around. "Who's there? Who are you?" Rosie stammered as she stepped back, away from the mirror. But the horrifying face of the woman she had seen on the road stared back at her, now closer than ever. "Why are you following me since last night? Leave me alone. Please, just go." Rosie cried out, frantically grabbing nearby objects and throwing them at the mirror. But nothing worked. The woman moved closer, unaffected. Rosie stumbled onto the bed, and before she could react, the ghastly figure pinned her down. Rosie felt paralyzed, certain her end was near. She squeezed her eyes shut in terror. Moments later, when she dared to open them, the room was covered in blood. She was horrified to see the woman perched on her chest, tearing apart and devouring a raw chicken as if it were her last meal. Rosie gasped, but the creature turned to her, sinking her teeth into Rosie's neck. She felt her blood being drained, and then suddenly, the woman vanished. The doorbell rang. It was Joseph. "Rosie, open the door," he called out. When she didn't respond, he fetched a master key from reception and entered the room. Rosie sat curled up in the corner, trembling. "Rosie, what happened to you? And why are your clothes stained with blood? Say something." But Rosie couldn't speak. She just stared blankly at him, tears streaming down her face. Joseph called room service, and soon hotel staff arrived. Everyone was baffled, including the management, as the CCTV footage showed nothing unusual. Joseph quickly changed Rosie's clothes and decided to take her back to Mumbai. However, the bloodsucker, the demonic entity, was now attached to Rosie. It followed her everywhere, invisible to others, but tormenting her constantly. Rosie's behavior grew more erratic. Her body began to weaken. She looked frail and lifeless. Joseph took her to countless doctors, but no one could diagnose her condition. Eventually, someone suggested taking her to a church. At the church, the priest listened to Joseph's story. "This is the curse of the bloodsucker," the priest explained gravely. "What is a bloodsucker?" Joseph asked, his voice trembling. "These are restless, bloodthirsty spirits, doomed to wander the earth for eternity. They neither let their victims live peacefully, nor allow them to die. The only way to escape their curse is to transfer it to someone else." Joseph was horrified. "What are you saying? Pass this suffering onto someone else? That's inhuman." "I understand," the priest replied, "but that is the rule of this curse. Someone passed it on to her, and now the only way out is to pass it to another." Meanwhile, far away, the taxi driver sat at dinner with his daughter. "I'm so happy you're healthy again," he said, smiling. "That bloodsucker almost reduced you to a skeleton. But that night, I left it with that madam in my taxi." He laughed sinisterly, his grin wide with satisfaction. Back in Mumbai, Joseph was tormented by Rosie's deteriorating condition. The bloodsucker gave her no peace, neither letting her live a normal life, nor allowing her to die. Joseph couldn't bring himself to curse someone else with this nightmare. That fateful night's journey with a stranger became an unending nightmare for Joseph and Rosie, a shadow that would haunt them forever. Are you sure about your next journey with a stranger? Be cautious. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to The Horror Zone.